What is up, everybody? Welcome to Rats on Film, the show where a bunch of film rats talk about and rank movies. Now, this is podcasting. Today on the show, we are talking about the Star Wars prequel episodes. On the show with me today, I have Johnny.
Hey, hello. That was my Watto voice. I couldn't remember a line he says. What does he say? Danny. Yeah, I knew that. But does he say like? Does he ever say, "Hey, welcome to the podcast"?
I don't think he does.
Sure.
Okay, can we restart the pod?
Yeah. Andy.
He's back.
Tim.
The taxation of trade routes is in dispute.
And I'm your host, Xander. Welcome to the show, everybody. Wow, great quotes right out the bat. Everyone's favorites from the prequels.
Yeah, that definitely blew my mic out with that one. That's a good start.
Yeah, we got to restart the whole pod, resync, redo everything. I got a new line. I got everything ready.
You just do your new line now.
I like the line where Anakin says, "Love won't save you, Padme. Only my awesome new powers will."
Only my epic bacon new powers will save you.
That line made me laugh out loud.
I think a lot of lines make me laugh out loud in the prequels. All right, let's talk a little bit generally about the prequels to start out.
Better than the originals. Sorry.
I like the prequels. I mean, I'm a kid of the 90s. I grew up with them. I still like them to this day. They're not great, but I enjoy them.
They are great.
They're not good movies, but they're great movies.
I agree. Yes. That's a good sentiment.
They are interesting movies, and I'll leave it at that.
I don't know. I feel like people get in the weeds with the prequels. I feel like
is that not what we're doing here?
No, yeah, today? We're going to. But I feel like in a critical way that I don't agree with. I feel like, in general, the ideas of the prequels are good if the execution is not.
That's sort of, I think, going to be a running theme for each of these movies.
That the ideas are really good and the execution is also really good.
I think the ideas are insane and the execution is also insane in a way that I like.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of lore that goes on in the prequels. I think more so than the originals.
I mean, it's interesting. Yeah, it's like, where do you even start with these movies? I guess you start with the memes, I feel like, is sort of the main thing that is the way people interact with these movies these days. The memes have really. But
you got to earn it. You got to earn the memes by watching them 30 times, and then the memes come out.
Well, it's a matter of like our generation, growing up watching these movies a million times over.
Yeah, these have to be some of my most watched movies of all time.
The kids rush the memes now. They go to see the Minecraft movie and they're yelling chicken jockey and they're throwing popcorn like you're forcing it.
That's on run through number 100 that you get to make that joke,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like the Star Wars thing, we watch them legitimately. Then we watch them 300 more times legitimately. And now as adults, we make drinking games and we get drunk and we make memes out of it.
And we
had to earn it.
You put in the time.
Yeah, I think that you can't just go to a movie you've never seen and scream at the chicken jockey, set off fireworks.
Yeah, I do think that there's a level of newfound appreciation for the prequels because of the incessant rewatching by our generation and the discovery of new ways to enjoy them.
Speaking of new ways to enjoy them and drinking, Andy, do you have the rules of our drinking game that we could tell the audience?
I actually do. I do have that pulled up.
Because Andy and I rewatched the movies, but we made a drinking game to rewatch them because we've seen them so many times and we needed a new experience. And Andy has the list of rules.
Classic Star Wars reference, like I have a bad feeling about this, or some other line, Then any line that's been memed, and then sand, any mention of sand, that is a separate rule.
The sand one barely comes up. You'd think it would come up way more.
The next one was when a character screams and then explodes.
That's the best rule.
That's a great Star Wars drinking game.
It happens a lot.
That's pretty good.
And then anytime there's any alcohol or drug use, surprisingly little.
Yeah, not a lot.
Mention of midichlorians. Anytime little Boba Fett says, dead. He did. That happens 0 times in episode 1.
A lot of these rules are episode 2 heavy.
I need to mention a Roger.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
When a character replies in English to something that was in an alien language or droid.
That's pretty
Classic.
good.
No, there was 2 more too that you missed. Anytime someone ignites a lightsaber,
Oh, yeah, right.
which banged us in episode 2.
They're constantly. Oh my god.
And anytime Kit Fisto is on screen, you're drinking. And
He looks into the camera.
And if he turns to, he looks into camera and smiles, you finish your drink.
Yeah.
Man, fuck Kate Fisto.
What the fuck?
Yeah, he's my favorite character.
Wait, what?
So.
Yeah.
Everything's just a joke to him. Like, all of his friends are dying around him. He's just smiling and fucking like
He's having
fucking
fun,
around
dude.
with.
You don't even know
C-3PO.
about.
That's
Maybe
crazy.
that's how his aliens frown.
No,
Like, you don't know.
No, I don't believe that.
You don't know.
You're making
you-
excuses.
you don't know for
poor-
sure, though. It
You're
is
making
true.
excuses for poor behavior.
Also, Kit Fisto was doing a lot of drugs, and he's on the upper in episode 2, and then in episode 3, he's on a big downer. Like he's like feeling the effects
Or he's
of all this
he's
drug
going through
use.
withdrawals.
Yeah, exactly. If he wasn't going through insane withdrawals, he would have beaten Palpatine easily.
And he would have smiled more.
He was on death sticks. Anyway, those are the rules. Play at home.
All right, do you guys want to get into the episodes?
Yeah.
All right, first off, episode 1, The Phantom Menace, 1999.
I was there.
This is the first movie I ever saw in theaters.
That's crazy.
My dad took me to see it. The way he tells the story, he thought I was going to be freaked out by Darth Maul when he got chopped in half, and he went, "Uh-oh, I fucked up." And he looked over at me, and I had both my arms up in the air cheering. So,
This is the first movie I consciously remember anticipating, like being aware of its existence and being excited to go see it.
And then it was all downhill.
Well,
Did you like it?
No, I don't know. I had an interesting experience with this movie. I loved it because I was 3 years old.
When did your heart die? What age?
I was big on the original movies, and it was, very different. But I was picking up what it was putting down. I don't know if I don't know. You don't really rank things in your mind when you're 3 years old, but it was all just Star Wars to me. Things changed as I got older, but
I find it weird that you guys have memories from your childhood, because I feel like personally I can't remember a single thing
I remember
15 years old.
You don't remember going to any of the Star Wars movies?
I remember
definitely
going to
remember
3 for sure.
Yeah, I remember episode 3. I don't remember 1 or 2. Like, I had them
think
at
I
home
did
on
see
VHS
2.
or whatever.
I feel like I did see 2 in theaters, but I remember going to 3.
yeah, I feel like episode 1 coming out is what got me into original Star Wars.
interesting.
I saw commercials or toys or whatever and got excited about it. And then my mom showed me the original movies because she liked them and had them on VHS or whatever. And that's like my introduction to it. It's actually through this movie.
I think that's probably the case for me.
All right, so let's get into the movie. Let's get into the nitty gritty. Start off right off the bat with one of the major criticisms of the prequels, politics. I'm going to defend the politics. I think it's not well executed, but low key, I kind of think it's really interesting. The concept of an evil person using political manipulation to rise to power and to create an empire is actually genuinely really interesting.
Also, someone nefariously playing both sides of the conflict to consolidate power is really clever. But again, the execution is a little bit.
This nobody senator from Naboo hires some other people to fuck up his own planet so that he can manipulate a newly elected young queen to help get himself political power is actually genuinely pretty interesting.
I think Phantom Menace actually has maybe the best plot of any of these 3 movies. But yeah, there's sort of an elegance to the way that the information is doled out that's a bit clunky and can honestly get like a bit boring at times. I think maybe this is the only Star Wars movie you could say is boring, and sometimes it's the politics and sometimes it's other stuff. Some of the pacing in this movie is a little weird.
Can we say this? I think I know at least one person on this podcast agrees. Anakin is the most interesting character in all of Star Wars.
Yeah.
He probably is.
Anakin is interesting, derogatory, I think I would say, in these 3 movies. I have specific issues with his character in each of the 3 movies. In this one, I would say I wish he wasn't a kid. Jake Lloyd has gotten a lot of shit over the years, and I honestly, that's not even my problem with it. I just feel like there's sort of like a continuity that's lost between this movie and the other 2 movies by having...
Yeah, it is like incredibly jarring to see Darth Vader as a little boy shouting yippee. But like I do think like that was George Lucas's point. I don't know exactly how to articulate that.
He wants to show the loss of innocence.
I think the idea was he wanted the moment where the Jedi take him from his mother to be really traumatic. And I think the reasoning is if he's like Luke's age, if he's 19, that's not necessarily traumatic because that's the age where you leave your family anyway.
The parallel with Luke or whatever is like extremely intentional of trying to show that like they both literally grew up in the same place. Luke could have become Vader had the Jedi kidnapped him, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
One of the most interesting things I think that George Lucas does in the prequels is make the Jedi kind of pieces of shit.
Yeah, they suck ass.
Yeah.
Ki-Adi Mundi, every time
Ki-Adi
on my
Mundi.
screen,
Fuck
I'm
Kit
throwing
Fisto.
things. Dude.
No, not Kit Fisto. He's one of the good ones.
Putting Kit Fisto in with Ki-Adi Mundi. One of them is the coolest and one of them's the shittiest.
One of them smiles.
Ki-Adi Mundi is the worst Jedi Master for sure. There's no question about that. What's very interesting about the prequels is it's essentially all born out of like 4 lines of dialogue from Alec Guinness in episode 4.
And if we would have known that led to Ki-Adi Mundi, we would have maybe not gone with it.
But the Jedi are really seen as heroes, and Luke's a hero. He's the Return of the Jedi. It's like this great triumphant thing in the originals. And then you get to the prequels and they're fucking dumb, dude. They're dumb and stupid, and they got stupid rules, and they have no idea what's going on. Yeah, they have no idea what's going on. It's very interesting. It's a very like unexpected twist on what you think is going to happen.
But it's purposeful.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, Qui-Gon, I think, is a really interesting character because, you know, he doesn't sort of fall in line with the Jedi entirely. I think Qui-Gon has maybe gotten a bad rap over the years. I'm not quite sure.
No,
why
he's like
that
one of
is.
the most interesting characters, I think.
Yeah, I think he's definitely like one of the stronger parts of this movie and the 3 movies. Obi-Wan really disappoints me in this movie.
I was going to say, I'm going to be a Qui-Gon anti. Obi-Wan Kenobi is my favorite Star Wars character.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's a missed opportunity.
I think that's where
that
the
Anakin
critique
and
comes.
Obi-Wan barely interact in this movie.
I do agree with that.
I agree. He's definitely like misused, but I definitely, again, I see what they're going for. Like I see the vision of like Obi-Wan's like almost not ready to take Anakin as his Padawan, but has to in the end.
That's the point though, right? That Anakin needed a father figure, but Qui-Gon dies and then he gets an older brother.
Exactly.
Sure. And that's
Obi-Wan
part
thinks
of
of
the
him as a
downfall.
brother. Yeah.
Because in the third movie, when, well, we're getting ahead of ourselves, but when Yoda is like, you gotta go kill him, he's like a brother to me. He doesn't say he's like a son to me. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like it is very purposeful.
I think that is a good point though, Johnny. The difference between the father figure and the brother figure.
And it gives space for Palpatine to step in and become a father figure and manipulate him.
Exactly. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Can we talk about, before we get to the end, how Shmi gets absolutely fucked in this movie?
Yeah, she does.
They find them and they're slaves, right? And they're like, okay, we're going to free the kid because this kid's got potential. The midichlorians are high. And he's like, oh, my
Off the
mom,
charts.
though. What if something happens to my mom? And they're like, yeah, she'll be fine.
Why didn't Qui-Gon Jinn
Could have freed her.
force move the dice to land on its side?
I think Qui-Gon doesn't want her to come because he's like, that's what Jedi do.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah.
Padme's like a wealthy aristocrat who supposedly loves him and is like, well, his mom's a slave though, you know, probably leave that.
Yeah, do you guys want to talk about the pod racing? I feel like that's a big thing.
No human has ever finished a pod race, which is insane to me. But yeah,
Seems easy.
Yeah, it doesn't seem that hard. I'll just say that. I think the pod race is, one of the cornerstone moments in the movie.
Why do people shit on it?
It's really well done.
It's awesome.
It also looks amazing.
Yeah, the effects
looks for like
amazing.
1999.
The effects are incredible.
These movies in general, like we'll touch on it more when we get to the other ones, but they genuinely look really good.
With all the alterations that George Lucas has done to the movies over the years, they hold up.
Okay, I will say, while we're talking about the pod race and alterations, if you watch the movie now on Disney Plus or the Blu-rays or whatever, the pod race goes on for like
it's too long.
About 15 hours, I think, maybe is the exact time.
Well, he specifically was trying to bang Andy and I because I'm pretty sure he added 1 or 2 shots of like somebody screaming and then exploding.
Yeah,
that was playing the drinking game. George Lucas was against you in this moment.
He knew.
There's some incredible scenes of like where they show the landscape shot and there's like you can see the mirage off of like
really
the
cool
desert, which is like impossible to fake in 1999, and it looks really good.
Do you guys want to talk about Duel of the Fates?
Yeah, that's the other. That's the other big sequence in the movie.
I think the best piece of score in the prequels. Love it.
Yeah,
I think it slaps.
I think the next movie has that, but I hear you and I respect it.
Darth Maul thoughts?
Cool.
I think Darth Maul is like design, like maybe like a top 10 Star Wars design, like character as a character in reality, kind of a nothing burger.
No, he's cool.
Which is maybe my issue with the actual scene, the Duel of the Fate scene, that duel. I kind of have like no actual like emotional investment in it. I feel like the stakes are very low.
Actually, I disagree with you. I think like genuinely the stakes are super high. And I think the stakes don't come from understanding or having a background on Darth Maul as a character. He is like a force of nature. He is a demon coming to warp the future. That's what the Duel of the Fates is about. Like Qui-Gon dying sets Anakin and the Chosen One on a path to the dark side. Like that's the point. You know what I mean? That's why it's like the duel of Anakin's fate. Those are the stakes.
I hear you. It just, that feels like a bit too like global intellectualizing like the series as a whole, and not as much like what the movie itself is actually doing, because like none of that is really.
I disagree. It's literally called Duel of the Fates. Like,
well,
the whole
they don't say that
like
word in the movie. You know what I mean?
But they do. No, but they do. They do establish that like Qui-Gon is very non-establishment. Like he's like non-traditional Jedi or whatever. And then they establish Anakin as a non-traditional Padawan. And it's like they're setting up, oh, maybe Qui-Gon could be the one to take on this person, and it passes on to Obi-Wan, and maybe Obi-Wan won't handle it as well. You know, like I do feel like they've set up that thread.
Well, and it's cutting back and forth between Anakin, who is the subject of his fate, and also it's cutting to Padme and all the stuff going on in Naboo, which also is crucial to the fate of the galaxy. Like all of these things going on at once. And it's also cutting to the Gungans, which is some stupid bullshit, but like ignore that part.
Yeah, there's like one too many things going on for sure. Like the intercutting between four things is too many. But I agree with you, Johnny. I don't mind Darth Maul just being a menace. I mean, the movie's called Phantom Menace. Like he doesn't necessarily need to have depth to be a threat. You know, they're on this mission to save Naboo. And this kind of plays into like the Jedi are dumb aspect of the movie. They think that saving Naboo saves the galaxy, like that this is the conflict. But in reality, Palpatine getting power from this is all he cared about. It has nothing to do with freeing the Naboo people. And so I think there's like that added element of like they personify Darth Maul as like the evil force, and they just think that beating him is what's saving the day. And it actually is not. And it's like this false victory in a way.
Have you ever heard a music theory person talk about like the celebration tune that they play at the end there, and how it's like actually just a minor transposition of Palpatine's theme?
Oh, interesting.
It's the same theme, it's just like transposed to sound, or sorry, it's a major transposition.
I think my thing with Darth Maul is more like his screen time is really low, and like Darth Vader's screen time is really low in A New Hope, but I feel like there's a presence to Darth Vader that Darth Maul just doesn't really have for me.
I don't know. I feel like when he shows up, especially at the end, like in the middle, it's whatever. That fight with Qui-Gon is pretty nothing. But when he shows up at the end and he takes off his hood and you're like, yo, this guy's scary. And he pulled, Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan ignite their lightsabers, and then he pulls out his, and it's two. That's a mind blow awesome moment where you're like, oh, how's he going to be two people? And it's like, I got two lightsabers.
Yeah, that's fun. Yeah, the double blade is fun.
And then the choreography is great throughout the whole scene. He gets chopped in half. It's cool. Get him.
The fight is well done, for sure. There's a quote from George Lucas in Behind the Scenes doc after he watches like...
Jar Jar is the key to everything.
Well, that's true. That's a good one too. I was going to say after he watches like a rough cut of the movie and he's like, I may have gone too far in a few places. I think that is kind of the story of this movie. And like, there are all these really great and interesting ideas. Maybe the movie is overstuffed in some ways that it doesn't know how to synthesize these things in a way that works for me personally.
I think that's true, but I also still appreciate the attention to expanding the galaxy. And like they meet Jar Jar and they're like, he's a local and he's weird, but he's an alien to them. You know what I mean? There's all these different planets with all these different cultures and all these different people. And I feel like it adds to the universe of Star Wars.
Agreed. The world building in episode 1 and throughout the prequels is incredible.
Yeah, definitely.
Like the amount of planets and the amount of diverse biomes they introduce is like really cool.
Like, I do agree that sometimes it messes up the pacing because they're so interested in showing some random little alien thing that isn't really that important to the overall plot. And it's not necessary for the main plot, but it does enrich the Star Wars universe.
All right, you guys want to get into episode 2?
Yeah.
All right.
Well, we didn't rank it.
Well, it starts at the top.
Okay. If you say so.
I'll allow it.
You want to start at the bottom?
No, I want it to be at the top.
Next up, Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, 2002.
Hell yeah.
Enter Hayden Christensen, Andy's boy.
I love him. Something about the way that he talks. Like, I think like people criticize that he talks somewhere between like an American and a British accent, but I think I'm in love with that. You know?
I also like it.
I love the way that he talks.
I like Hayden Christensen in the movies. I'm a Hayden Christensen defender as Anakin. I think the criticism that he gets for the performance of Anakin has more to do with the dialogue that he was given than him as a performer.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do like Hayden Christensen in these movies. I think not every line delivery is great. I would blame that more on the dialogue.
One thing I did notice in this movie, talking about line delivery, is a lot of the actors are delivering their lines badly. And I do think there is room for improvement. But again, like Tim was just saying, the lines are not great. But I will say Samuel L. Jackson delivers every line well.
There are some,
and he's a great actor. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, I think there is a level.
And some of his dialogue is some of the worst.
There are some actors in
That's
these
what I'm
movies
saying.
that, like, you know, they nail it regardless.
He really does deliver the lines well with like gravitas and everything.
I think maybe this is a good time to say this. You know, the movies are a bit stiff. I feel like the acting is a bit stiff. Not even like bad, and not even necessarily like wooden. But like if you compare it to the original movies, things just felt a bit looser, more natural, and that's the acting and the dialogue.
Well, it was a weird creative choice though, because they want the Jedi to be emotionless and serious, right? It's like the politicians and the Jedi, like serious characters. That's all the main characters are, politicians and Jedi. And then George Lucas probably watched it back and went, oh, it's too serious, so put Jar Jar in it. You know what I mean? So it's like this weird juxtaposition that doesn't really work all the time.
Yeah, I think with this movie, it goes back to something I said about the first one. I think, again, the idea I really like of it, the execution, not as much. You know, I said earlier that I think Anakin is the most interesting character in all of Star Wars. In the big picture, the prequel trilogy is essentially showing you how Anakin Skywalker becomes Darth Vader. And so you have to have this turn to the dark side. And this movie is arguably the most important factors in that, where it's the loss of his mother and it's also him falling in love with Padme. The problem with this movie is that the falling in love with Padme just doesn't feel very believable.
You know what's crazy about it too is like I feel like Hayden Christensen and Natalie Portman actually do have chemistry.
Yes.
Like there are moments in this movie where you can feel that there is a connection.
It's the plot though, right? It's the idea that they have some interesting conversations. Again, like the politics is vaguely interesting.
Yeah.
Where she's talking about the system being broken and wanting to fix it. And Anakin Skywalker's like, what about a tyranny? And she's like,
Yeah, what about Hitler?
and she's like, that's cool. And then he murders, commits a small village genocide. And she's like, that's cool.
I like my favorite scene in the movie is when he uses the Force to take her pear, and then he slices a tiny little slice off of it, and he gives her the tiny little baby piece, and then he keeps the big piece for himself.
Dude, that's the fucking tyranny that he's talking about.
And then she's like, "Oh, my hero," but really he's like, "I got most of it though."
Would that have seduced you?
Yeah, I think most definitely.
Do you think they chose pears because they taste like sand?
Oh, dude, that's clever.
But that's some
Do pears
lore,
taste
right?
like sand?
I don't know. I've never had one.
I've never had sand. There's some pacing issues in this movie too. I think in particular the way they structure this movie. This is like the Empire Strikes Back where, you know, the team splits up. I think when you look at that movie, there's always like sort of a beginning, a mini like arc before they cut back. There's like a beginning, middle, end. I feel like this movie like cuts back so much between the romance and the mystery that it's like hard to get swept up.
No, I like the mystery, but to go back,
It is cool.
to go back to my
Yeah.
other criticism, I don't like that we don't see Anakin and Obi-Wan together enough in this trilogy.
Yeah, absolutely.
One, and I think Ewan and Hayden have good chemistry together.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just not used enough.
Yeah. And Ewan really comes into his own in this movie.
Yeah,
like,
he's
this is a good Obi-Wan movie for the most part.
Johnny was talking about in episode 1 or whatever how like Obi-Wan was set up to be the father figure for Anakin, but thinks of him more as a brother. I feel like they could have probably pulled on that thread more by having him have more of a like a buddy brother relationship with Anakin, but instead
definitely.
they like kind of choose to stress the father figure element, which makes it look like he's occupying that role.
I mean, but honestly, this trilogy needs to be 4 movies. That's really the issue with 2, is that like if you're taking everything that they did and you're accepting it and you're not saying, okay, redo it, right? There needs to be another movie in between 2 and 3.
Yeah, I totally agree, Johnny.
I feel like it's like, you know, when you're like writing something on a sign and you start like really big, and then like as you write, you realize that you've really budgeted your space poorly, and like the first letter is massive and then like the last few letters you can barely read them. That's kind of like what this trilogy is. And then as he gets closer to the original movies, he's like, oh fuck, there's some stuff I forgot to do that I need to do now.
George Lucas is like someone who goes to an all-you-could-eat buffet for these prequels, and he really stacked his first plate.
Yeah,
high.
that's a good way. That's a good way to put it.
And then he was kind of full, and he's like, "But I want another plate." And he got a second plate, and then he stacked it high. He's mixing weird things now, like he's got spaghetti and he's got chicken teriyaki next to it. You know what I mean? And it's like, what are you doing now? But then he's like, well, you got to get dessert at the all-you-could-eat buffet. And the dessert is sweet, and the dessert is satisfying.
Yeah.
And it's the best part.
I feel like we have to talk a bit about the visuals of this movie. Not necessarily in a good way, but this is like the first major movie to be shot on digital. That's an important part of it.
Unfortunately.
Like to some extent, like you look at these movies and it almost feels like George Lucas is more interested in like innovating technology, which I do think is really cool. I'll say that much. I just wish that he wasn't doing it with Star Wars. He's going a little too hard into the CG and the digital environments. I think that's the bigger issue.
I'm also certain that like the design for many of these things that show up in episode 2, like the clones and like Jango Fett, are like because George Lucas was like, oh shit, dude, we can do specular reflections now. Like, let's make his whole armor reflective, you know?
I have some interesting behind the scenes stuff, because we're talking about like special effects and stuff. When I was in college, I took a motion capture animation class, and my professor was this guy named Jeff Light, and he was a really cool, really nice guy, and he worked at ILM, and he was kind of the original motion capture supervisor at ILM when they first started doing it. And he told me a story once that was really interesting, which is that, you know how the battle droids walk kind of weird and their asses kind of stick out a little bit? You know, they're almost always crouched. It was because when you do motion capture, you know, you put on a black suit, you put dots all over yourself, whatever. You have your own proportions, right? And they basically designed battle droids and made 3D models for them that did not have exactly human proportions. Jeff Light was showing George Lucas a pass of it, right? And when you haven't recalibrated where each major pivot point is on the body to the model, it just auto does it, and it's going to look a little wonky. So that's why it looks wonky like that. And George Lucas looked at it and he was like, oh no, don't worry, we're going to fix that. We just have to like recalibrate it and make sure that all the joints are going to the correct spot on the model so that it makes sense. And George Lucas was like, no, I like it. That's good. It's funny.
It's perfect.
And that's the reason that they walk like that.
Yeah, that's really cool.
That's fun.
I think something that I like about this movie towards the end, even though the climax is like a bit crazy with some of the special effects we're talking about, is it's the first time you get to see a bunch of Jedi get together for like a big fight. And I feel like as a kid, that was a really exciting and cool moment.
Yeah, that definitely felt like, you know, like this is what we've been waiting for.
Yeah.
That kind of moment.
You guys want to talk about Count Dooku?
Count Dooku is one of the things that bothers me about 2, because he's a very interesting character and it's not fully realized. And it goes back to like that there needs to be a movie in between this and 3.
Yeah, he straight up tells Obi-Wan what's going on.
But there's you watch it and you're like, what is this guy's plan? Like, what does he want? And you never find out. He's like undercover, but he's still kind of evil, but he's also like maybe not as evil.
Yeah, he's like anti-Jedi and anti-Sith.
But I feel like that's almost like you're supposed to maybe think that, and then I feel like it's supposed to be a reveal at the end that no, he was just fucking around. Like he is like fully Sith, evil, Palpatine side.
Do you think so though?
I don't. That's the thing. I don't know. It's not clear.
Yeah.
Like I think that's an issue. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it does beg the question with the whole thing too, of how aware is Palpatine of Anakin's potential to turn to the dark side? Like, is that always his plan, or is his plan just to seize control of the Senate? And he just happens to, along the way, identify Anakin as a potential target. You know what I mean? Like, there's varying theories about, is Palpatine's whole plan involving Anakin, or does he change his plan?
Right. There's even theories that, like, he created Anakin, right?
I feel like, though, that's the kind of ambiguity that, like, is fun and feels intentional.
Yeah, I agree.
Agreed.
Versus Count Dooku, where it's like, I
have no idea what his deal is.
Like detrimental to like this part of the movie that I don't know really what he's about.
I agree.
I'll also say to Count Dooku, I don't like the fight at the end here, the lightsaber duel, as much as Duel of the Fates. It doesn't
it's not
hold up. It doesn't stand up.
Oh, it's not even close.
I'm not even a Yoda lightsaber anti. I know a lot of people hate that Yoda uses a lightsaber.
It's not even the Yoda part that makes it not good.
This is a thing that is like a little bit annoying. Is they make Obi-Wan kind of suck, which is kind of silly.
He sucks in every fight.
Yeah.
Well, he's good against Maul and he's good against Grievous.
Yeah.
But whenever Anakin's there,
himself.
he sucks is what it is.
Yeah. And I don't know if that's just them trying to make Anakin look good or what.
Yeah, it is.
Now, I will say, when I was a kid, double lightsaber Anakin, cool. Did like that.
Yeah. But then like
it only lasts like
it's
15
like 30 seconds.
Yeah. It's like in theory.
I was excited for that, as well as a kid, and then like it ended too soon. Just like Kit Fisto.
This movie kind of was like a bit of the slightest of disappointments when I was a kid.
Oh yeah. All right, how do you guys want to rank episode 2?
2.
To me, there's no question. Yeah, the Phantom Menace is better.
I think it's really interesting that you often hear that Phantom Menace is the really bad one. I think it's significantly better than 2. Like, I don't even think it's close.
I think just because it was the first one. So, like, the people who were disappointed by the trilogy as a whole, that was the first one.
I also think people get caught up on certain pain points on the prequels. And I think Jar Jar Binks is one of them. And I think politics is one of them, among other things. Yeah. And those are more prevalent in episode 1 than 2. So I think people latch onto those things.
Yeah. It's just a lot of exposition in 2.
2 is weaker, but it does have 2 of, like, my favorite things, which is it has my favorite piece of music from any of these movies, the love theme, Across the Stars. And it has my favorite sequence, which is Anakin going to find his mother and killing the Tusken Raiders, which I feel is a really good moment for his journey.
Him speeding through the desert is good. Is good. With that imagery. Soundtrack.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, I like that moment a lot. I don't like what surrounds it. I think it's misplaced.
I agree.
All right, last up, Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, 2005.
Andy didn't even watch it. I had to watch 3 by myself. Andy fucking abandoned me.
I've watched 3 1,000 times.
You abandoned me. We were watching them all together.
Listen, I wanted to
do a drunk thing. I drank by myself. Kit Fisto died.
We can still do it.
Kit Fisto died and I cried and nobody was there to comfort me. I was all alone.
There's a lot of explosions and screamings in this one in particular.
Oh, no. You didn't follow the game rules though, did you?
I did the game.
No, you didn't.
Yeah, I did.
Now I feel sad.
Yeah, you should feel sad.
Yeah, you should. Hey guys, this is how I want to start episode 3. This is where the fun begins.
I didn't have fun.
Well, that was Andy's fault.
It's going to affect my rating.
I love this one. I think this one rules.
Agreed. Hard agree. Nothing's wrong with it. And okay, I put that as
Tim.
number 1.
Here comes Tim. Gonna ruin everybody's time. Say how it's bad.
Well, I have a few issues with this movie.
Oh, what a shocker.
Not enough Jar Jar.
Actually, before we get into this, because after episode 2, which was when Andy and I were the drunkest, we did write something to each other.
Okay.
This was after we had drank ourselves and we were laying in bed. Separate beds. Separate states.
Oh, man. Sadly, yeah.
Texting each other. Okay, so I texted Andy. In preparation, we knew Tim was going to be a hater. So we had a lot of hate in our hearts. I wrote, I killed Tim. And not just the Tim, but the woe Tim and the chill trim. And then Andy responded to that with, "They're antimals." And I slaughtered them like antimals. I hate Tim. And that's our little poem.
Antimals is good.
Listen, I'm not a hater.
I was proud of it.
I have a lot of love for this movie in my heart. When I saw it, I probably would have thought it was the best thing I've ever seen in my life. I have almost every single of the Burger King toys that were out when this movie was coming out. I've seen this movie a million times, but it is not a perfect movie.
I'm thinking with Andy. I don't think I have any problems with this movie.
Yeah, it is a perfect movie.
Okay. If we want to get into
No, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
the big stuff, this is the movie where Anakin turns to the dark side. That's like the whole point of the movie. I don't buy Anakin turning to the dark side, and that kind of breaks the movie for me. I buy that he wants to save Padme. Sure, I think that's good. I think there's a really good dramatic irony there. That works. I buy, to a degree, his loyalty to Palpatine. I don't buy the 180 that he does on the Jedi Order and the immediate massacring of, all various
younglings?
Jedi younglings, etc. It's not too far off from things that could have made it work for me. The scene where he kills Dooku, I think, he really should just kill Dooku straight away. He gives into that darkness within him and he kills a literal unarmed person. But the way they portray it, he knows it's wrong and he's just goaded into it. That doesn't scan for me as he's falling to the dark side.
You're missing how he said, "Do it."
Well, that's
and that
true.
was very convincing.
That's true.
He hates the Jedi Order.
Tim, he used Force do it on him,
And I didn't know that power existed before this movie. So I'm still, wrapping my head around that specific Sith ability.
It's very convincing.
I want to talk about something in that Dooku scene. They enter the room, right, to save Palpatine because he's been captured. He's sitting in the most evil throne you've ever seen. And he slowly turns around as they enter.
It's literally the same throne he has in Return of the Jedi.
Bro's not being subtle about it.
Should we talk about that opening sequence while we're on it?
Yeah, we should. I think it's sweet.
It's awesome.
We don't get to see enough of Anakin as a pilot.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
Obi-Wan Kenobi kind of sucking at it and Anakin saving him, I think is great.
Yeah, that's fun. I think there are a lot of fun moments here. And this is sort of that thing that we were complaining about in the other movie where, we finally do get to see Anakin and Obi-Wan chumming it up on a mission.
And it's great.
But like Return of the Jedi, where that whole Jabba's sequence is way too fucking long, I think this has the same problem where it's just way, way too long. And
it is pretty
I
long.
love every minute. I love every minute of it.
But I do think the thing that I missed the entire trilogy is here. And I love this movie
Agreed.
for that, which is the...
And it happens in the first 10 minutes.
The Anakin Obi-Wan. I think this is the best we ever really get to see of them as partners, as best friends. And I think it works really well. I think Ewan and Hayden have amazing chemistry together.
Agreed. It's a really good resolution to coming off of episode 2 where Anakin is somewhat more immature and he's really ragging on Obi-Wan and how he's holding him back or whatever. And it's a great way to show very quickly.
If you miss Anakin ragging on Obi-Wan, it's going to come back pretty soon.
But yeah, Johnny's probably right. We probably miss a movie between these two where we could have seen them grow closer. But, this lets you kind of interpret what they've been through during the course of the Clone Wars.
Would have loved to see more, but
Yeah, but I
definitely.
almost feel like it's so good that you want more. Even if it's kind of working because their chemistry is so well, I still would want more.
I also think something that I like about this movie going forward into it with the two of them is a huge part of this movie is the Anakin turn. And a lot of it is fueled by the way that the Jedi Council treats him. It leans really hard into the Jedi are bad and arrogant and only think about themselves. And Obi-Wan, kind of following in the footsteps of Qui-Gon, which is kind of cool, actually starts to question the Jedi Council and doesn't agree with them and actually is trying to defend Anakin in this moment. And I like that dynamic, and I think it really saves how you feel about Obi-Wan in the end, where Obi-Wan isn't actually directly responsible for the turn of Anakin. He was against what happened that led him down that path.
Yeah, Anakin's just being a prick.
Yeah, exactly.
There's literally one scene where Obi-Wan, I think it's the last scene they talk before Anakin turns, Obi-Wan says something like, I'm really proud of you. You become like a better Jedi than I ever could have. Like, I taught you everything I knew. And
yeah, you're way past me.
If you're patient, you'll be a master in no time. Like, he says something like that.
Yes.
And Anakin's like, dude, that means so much coming from you. Literally, the next scene's like, Obi-Wan's such a fucking prick. Padme, he's trying to bang me. Him and the council are against me. Literally the very next
But I feel
scene.
like that's what's so tragic about it, right? Is like they get separated, there's no communication, and then he has all these thoughts about like the council and how he's an outcast and like what everyone thinks of. I feel like this plays into, like, I wanted to address what Tim said earlier of like the turn happens way too quickly or whatever.
It's a slippery slope.
It's an Anakin thing where like Anakin has this complex that he was never accepted. He was too old to begin with, and like they didn't care about his mom, and like there's so much baggage he's bringing into it. And he does one thing, they won't make him master or whatever, and then he does one thing that like they're absolutely never gonna forgive him for, which is like killing Mace Windu.
You guys want to have a moment for your boy Kit Fisto?
I was just going to say, maybe if Anakin saw like Kit Fisto's dead body, or if he saw Palpatine killing Kit Fisto, maybe he would have been more hesitant to go against Mace Windu in that moment, you know?
Yeah, unfortunately, Kit Fisto was fucking unrecognizable from episode 2. So when he passed over his corpse, he was like, oh,
the death sticks.
Look at that drug addict. Yeah.
Also, I think maybe based like on what Tim is saying, you know, after Anakin like basically gets Mace Windu killed, and then Palpatine's like, okay, I got a really special mission for you. I need you to go kill the kids. Like, maybe we just needed one line of Anakin being like, in for a penny, in for a pound. You know what I mean? And then that would have been like enough.
Maybe if the movie opened up on him doing that, and then it like there was a voiceover that was like, you may be wondering how I got myself in this situation.
Master Skywalker, there's too many of them. What are we going to do? Lightsaber ignites voiceover.
Yeah. And then one of the kids goes, he's right behind me, isn't he?
I don't think that fight is the best. It's okay. But I think there are some good fights in this one. Yeah. I love the Obi-Wan Grievous showdown.
Okay, but isn't it a little disappointing that he takes out the 4 arms and 2 of them immediately get chopped off?
That's what I would do. That's the smart thing to do.
Otherwise, I agree with you, but that's a bit silly.
You know what my favorite part is? How Grievous says, "You fool, I was trained in the Jedi arts by Count Dooku." And then he whips out helicopter blades as if Count Dooku taught him that move.
This is what we're talking about, where we're missing a movie to further establish Count Dooku.
Yeah, to see the helicopter blade technique.
Can we also say that Grievous seems way more like a count and Dooku seems way more like a general?
Dude, 100%. That is such a good observation.
Like, dude, Grievous literally has a vampire voice.
Yeah, he's
does. He's got a vampire voice. He's got a cloak.
And he's got a cape, and he walks around like hunchbacked, like with a cape.
Yeah, you're right. You're spot on.
Yeah.
You're spot on.
So I'm with that around.
All right, let's get to the good fight. Anakin Obi-Wan on Mustafar. I'm gonna say this. This is my favorite lightsaber duel in all of Star Wars.
Agreed.
I probably agree. Yep.
Fucking Anatim, dude.
Yeah, let's hear.
Is it too long, Tim? I think it's not long enough.
I personally prefer the choreography style and the originals where the lightsabers have a bit more weight to them. I feel like there is some really impressive choreography in this fight, but a lot of it feels a bit too weightless to me.
You don't like it when Anakin and Obi-Wan are both spinning their lightsabers in front of each other, not
doing
even
nothing,
making any contact for about 10 seconds.
But like in a weird way, like that kind of works for me because it's sort of like they're like mentally planning their next move and they know
exactly. That's what I think as well.
But like I don't know, like I kind of wanted more moments where things sort of slow down a bit.
I think this fight works on every level. I think emotional stakes are the best here. The culmination of Obi-Wan absolutely owning Anakin. 2 legs and an arm, 1 swing. And he can't bring himself to finish him off. Low-key, honestly, kind of meaner because he left him to burn up.
Yeah.
But the like weight of him being like, you were my brother, like I can't believe that this is what it's come to. I think all of it works really, really well.
I think there's some really great visuals. I mean, the best moment is like that moment where they grab each other's hands and that the giant like lava burst right behind them. That's
very cool.
That's incredible. Mm-hmm. That's iconic. At the same time, I don't know. Like, there's some stuff here that just feels a bit goofy to me. There's like the bit where they do like the Tarzan swings.
Luke did a Tarzan swing in the original. I don't hear you complain about that one.
That, I mean,
Got you there.
No, I mean,
wait.
no. If we want to get down to it, like that is a great moment in the original because
it's a great moment in that one.
It's swashbuckling. It's that it fits the tone of that sequence in that movie. And then this is supposed to be like the most emotional, high stakes, serious event in any Star Wars movie, and they're swinging around on vines.
I feel like your mind is clouded, Tim. Like,
but like I don't know. Like it does beg the question. Like, how are these the same guys? Like the fighting style is completely different. Anyways, whatever. I mean, but the other issue I think is the cutaways to the Palpatine and Yoda duel, which to me is not nearly as compelling or well choreographed.
Yeah, definitely not.
Well, yeah, I agree with that.
I do think that detracts from it. Yeah,
that one's also weird because they're literally fighting, and it seems like Yoda has the upper hand, and then the next time they cut back, he's literally just in the fucking air ducts crawling away. It's like, when did he lose? I think Yoda actually comes across really bad in the prequels, worse than anyone else, because he just makes so many mistakes and has so much like blinded by his own wisdom, right, throughout all of the decision making. And he's the guy really in charge. He's number one, Mace Windu's number two. I feel like Yoda does not do the right thing so much in these movies. Fight till you die. You know what I mean? This is your fault in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and this is the fate of the galaxy.
And you just run?
Nah, he's going Dagobah.
Like, you should have Palpatine run.
Right. I agree.
And Yoda, and then he doesn't know how to find him. And then he goes, oh, well, I'm going to have to go take this Jedi information and go hide somewhere.
Yeah, I agree with you about that.
How do you interpret the simultaneous death of Padme and the like rebirth of Darth Vader?
I don't even think that I've always wondered about this. I think it's a good question.
Like her dying out of nowhere, I guess, is like the question. What causes that?
I mean, I genuinely think it is what they say. I think it's just like she lost the will to live. I don't think it's deeper than that. I think the birth of Darth Vader thing, I don't know if Palpatine knows for sure that she's dead, but I think he sees that as the opportunity to seal the deal with Anakin.
I think he knows. I think he's powerful enough in the Force.
Yeah, I could believe that too.
That he knows. And Anakin is also powerful enough, and he has a connection to her. I mean, he like senses her multiple times throughout the movie, has dreams about her, to know that it's true.
My like headcanon interpretation of that sequence is like he talks all about this, like, how he has the ability to manipulate life and death or whatever. That might just be, again, manipulation of Anakin or whatever. The way I read that is he's like sapping the life of Padme and putting it into Anakin to save him.
I think my headcanon is that the power isn't real.
Yeah, I agree.
And that he just used it to manipulate him.
This sort of goes into, we really haven't talked about Padme at all. I think it's kind of emblematic of the character in this movie in particular. She really she's there to die. It's pretty much as simple as that.
Yeah.
Be pregnant and die, which is a shame.
Yeah.
All right, how do you guys want to rank episode 3?
I mean, it's the best one. Like,
yeah,
what's the discussion? One. I don't know.
Easily.
All right.
Out of all 12.
Easily. Well, hold on, Andy. We're going to get to the second. So, the Rats on Film official ranking for the prequel trilogy, objectively in our opinion, starting from the bottom. Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. And the Big Cheese, Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. Now, to create our master Star Wars list, we'll put these amongst the...
I don't know about this.
We'll put these amongst
I didn't know we were doing this.
Yeah, we'll put these amongst the original list that we made, which was...
why even bother? Because
4, 5, 6.
None of them are even remotely as good. So what's even the point?
The original?
We'll see how people vote.
Wait, what is the original list?
So yeah, the original list that we made a year ago was number 1, episode 4, number 2, episode 5,
Dude,
number
our
3,
lists are never good.
episode 6. Amongst 4, 5, 6, where would you guys put episode 1?
At the bottom, obviously.
Honestly, if I'm honest, I might go, you're going to hate me for this.
Do what you want.
It might be 4, 1, 5, 6.
4, 1, 5, 6. Okay.
Okay.
Johnny,
What the fuck?
what do you think, Johnny?
I'll probably put it below 6.
Below 6?
Yeah,
I would also put it
That's normal.
below 6. All right, where do you guys want to put episode 2?
Well,
Bottom.
the bottom.
Bottom.
Yeah.
Bottom, okay.
And a space.
In a space.
Yeah.
That one's okay with me.
All right, another big one. Where do you guys want to put episode 3?
Top.
I'll put it above 6.
So you're putting it.
I mean, it's
So you're putting it
third
below
place.
6.
Johnny, you're
Below
not
6.
you're not putting this above the originals, dude. You're lying to yourself.
No, I don't think so.
Imagine you only have one Star Wars film for the rest of your life you could ever watch again.
I mean, if I only had one, I'd probably
just
would,
answer.
I'd probably pick 4. But 4 is not even my favorite, but it just like is a complete film. You know what I mean?
I won't pick my favorite, he says.
Well, but my favorite is 5.
Yeah, either way, it's not 3.
So Johnny, where are you putting it? You're putting it above 6,
Yeah.
and you're putting it below 6.
Yeah, because
Andy,
it's not even close.
And Andy, you're putting it number 1.
Yeah, we are pretty far
Okay,
from each
I'm
other.
also putting it above 6.
Okay.
So I think it's going. So it's going to go above 6.
This is
Tim's going to weigh it down.
This is
Andy's gonna
maybe
weigh
the
it up.
stupidest part of any podcast. That
So
We literally only got
Rats.
one of them that was above 6, Tim, and you're losing it.
Because
it's not that
like,
bad.
I don't know. The gap is massive in my opinion.
I disagree.
I think a lot of your points are like very, very nitpicky.
I don't think
And,
so
like,
at all.
They're
I
not
think
necessarily wrong, but you could nitpick the originals in the same way.
So the Rats on Film official ongoing ranking for Star Wars films, starting from the bottom: Star Wars Episode 2: Attack of the Clones, Star Wars Episode 1: The Phantom Menace, Star Wars Episode 6: Return of the Jedi, Star Wars Episode 3: Revenge of the Sith, Star Wars Episode 5: The Empire Strikes Back, and still reigning Big Cheese, Star Wars Episode 4: A New Hope.
How far into saying that did you regret saying Star Wars at the beginning of each of them?
I did. It was a big misplay.
Yeah, like halfway through, you were like, damn. probably
Honestly,
should've.
2 in. As soon as I did Attack of the Clones, I was like, fuck.
Yeah. Tim's turning to the dark side.
Yeah. Tim's about to go home and kill some younglings.
I got the eyes. If you could,
And the thing was,
if there was video
your
on this
turn was a
podcast.
little too fast for me. It wasn't believable.
It wasn't very believable.
Yeah, it wasn't believable.
All right, thanks for listening to Rats on Film, everybody. Tell a friend about the show where a bunch of little rats talk about and rank movies. You can follow us on social media, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Rats on Film Pod. We'll post this list and all the future lists we make on Letterboxd. You can follow us there. We will be back in 2 weeks to talk about some more movies, and we'll be back in some time to talk about some more Star Wars movies. Bye.
Bye.